This is the CineSnob Podcast.
Hi, welcome to episode 270 of the CineSnob Podcast. I'm Jerrod Kingery.
I'm Cody Villafania.
Cody, you have a Spurs hat on, not
I
the
do.
draft hat you showed me a little while ago while you were out doing your Sunday shoppings.
Mm-hmm.
I did order a draft hat like a chump.
Yeah.
But, are you going to be watching the NBA draft, knowing the end result?
Yeah, I am. There's actually, I'm going to a draft watch party, even knowing the end results. Not the official one.
Right. There is an official one at the AT&T Center, right?
Yes.
And then there's another one here. There is one here in Austin.
Mm-hmm.
Just to keep everybody in San Antonio very nervous that they're having an official San Antonio Spurs watch party in Austin, draft watch party in Austin.
People here are super chill about all that Austin integration.
What do you think is the end game of all that? I know we talked about it before, but I think a Austin homestand instead of a rodeo road trip is in the cards at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe up to yes, you could do the Austin homestand instead of the rodeo road trip, but you still got to take those road games and stuff. So
sure. So
it's not as if you could do like a 1-for-1 swap or whatever, but I can imagine, extending up to maybe, 5 to 7 games a year instead of the 2. But
with an international audience coming to expect it to come for, Wembanyama, then Austin is a much more desirable city for international travel.
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder, like how far ahead they've planned that out at this point. Like winning that number 1 pick had to just click a lot of things into motion.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have to imagine that it was on the radar no matter what, and then now it's probably a sure thing. But so is the idea that they've been playing more international games a year, and what are the chances that the Spurs play a game or 2 in France, over the next few years or whatever. They're already playing in Mexico. Or they played in Mexico last year.
Yeah, they've done that a few times. That was even a longer ago than that, because I think it was the first time they were supposed to play in Mexico, like the arena filled with smoke. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And they canceled the trip, or they canceled that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, aren't there some games in the UK already?
Yeah, there are. Some teams are playing, I think, in maybe Germany or something. I don't remember.
I don't know either. Yeah, so the official watch party here in Austin is at a place called the Armadillo Den, which is really far down south for me, but I'm going to try to go. We'll see what happens.
Nice.
I'm going to say they haven't traditionally been great about the activations here in Austin.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were okay when they were here, but they had a really terrible South by Southwest activation at one point.
Yeah, I missed that one.
You didn't miss anything. It was in a hotel room with a few basketballs and some stickers they gave away. So is this a draft party? Is this Kiko's party, or is this another party?
Yeah.
Our good friend Kiko Martinez was very, very excited draft lottery day.
Yeah.
Which I still have to give him a little bit of shit, because he wasn't a Spurs fan in the 90s. He was a Barkley fan.
Right.
If he happens to watch this, which he never will, but
no.
Come on, Kiko, you ass. Couldn't be a Barkley fan in the 90s.
Yeah.
In San Antonio. Anyway.
And still claim ownership of the Spurs.
That's bullshit. Bullshit.
But I actually expect either on draft day or before the Spurs to make another move. I feel like they will trade for another first round pick. And so, there is a little bit of drama potentially added to the night. And I don't know, the last time we had that, a big draft night trade, it was the Kawhi Leonard deal that happened during the draft.
Yeah, that no one knew anything about. That was for George Hill, right?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Yeah. That everybody was like, who's that?
Yeah. And why are you trading the guy who is, essentially was fighting with Tony Parker not fighting with, but, it was a battle
competing for
starting
minutes,
point, starting point guard and minutes.
Well, anyway, that's on Thursday, the 22nd, or sorry, Thursday, the 23rd.
No, I think you're right. I think it is Tuesday the 22nd, Thursday the 22nd.
because tomorrow is 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd. Oh yeah, this date is wrong on this card here. Oh, you know what? I'm looking at an email for the 2002 draft party that I was sent.
Moron.
Sorry. Look, I looked in my Gmail for Spurs draft party, and that was the first thing that popped up. Boy, did anybody go to that party? I wonder. Like, did anybody give a shit about that one?
I mean, they had a lottery pick, but probably not.
Yeah. Cool. So, you haven't ordered your Wemby jersey yet, I assume.
Not yet. No, I would like to, but they don't exactly make it easy to try stuff on. And
yeah, we were talking about that. They like flash closed that store at La Cantera.
Yeah.
Where my wife and I stopped in there last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever, like, I guess the weekend before they closed it. And they had no dressing room. So I was like, can I try this jersey on? They're like, yeah, you can just put it on. Like, they didn't give two shits, but.
Yeah. And now, they're, that place is closed. And so there's really nothing you can do at this point except for just, hope that you pick the right size. Or I guess you can go down to the AT&T Center and do that. But who wants to do that?
Grab some Whataburger at the most inconvenient Whataburger in the world. Mm-hmm. And then try on a Spurs jersey. See what happens.
Yeah.
The old days, did you have any of the old school ones, like the Reebok or the Adidas ones from the last 20 years?
I haven't had a Spurs jersey in a long time.
So they used to be ginormous.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. I guess because it was only fat guys that wore them. I don't know. But they were like giant things. The new Swingman ones are like really tight fitting. Mm-hmm. So the size, if you're used to a specific size for a jersey, you're probably going to want to go up. I don't know. I don't know why they're fitted for dudes to actually play in them.
Yeah. Seems like a bad idea.
Yeah, it feels like they're made for you could wear this on the court if you wanted to, not like you're a fat guy who's going to wear this with a t-shirt underneath it and spill a beer on it.
Right. Yeah. Well, we'll see. I would like to get a jersey, and I may just go for one and hope for the best because there's nothing to try it out. That's why I was at Dick's earlier looking for something to try on, but nope.
They didn't have any.
They had some, but not in any of the sizes I was considering. So,
well, just take your chances. I assume that you'll be able to exchange it should it be the wrong size.
I believe that you can do that. I got to look into it a little bit more. But yeah,
because it's not a custom jersey,
right?
Not like the one that I have that has my name on it like an ass.
Yeah,
but
it says right now we currently only offer size exchanges. If you would like a different item, we recommend selecting store credit and then ordering the item. So,
good to know.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else before we move on, Cody?
No. That's all.
All right. Let's get started on reviews.
Here are this week's reviews.
Up we have The Flash.
So how was it this week? How's school?
School was good. Oh, this is mad trippy. Dude, this is catastrophic.
This world must die.
I'm not gonna lose her again. It's not Clark.
My name is Kara. I will help you.
Interesting group.
Want some help? Wait, he's Batman?
You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts.
Oh, this rips! We're in uncharted territory. Batman, what do?
We try not to die.
Are you ready?
Ready.
Let's go.
This is, of course, the long awaited solo movie for The Flash in the DC extended universe. I think this is the swan song or one of the swan songs of it. I guess it ends with
Aquaman. Yeah.
Aquaman. And I don't know if Blue Beetle counts. I don't know where that rests.
Yeah.
This was originally announced in 2014 and has been through 3 different directors. and a lot of behind-the-scenes controversy, most notably with Ezra Miller, who, of course, plays Barry Allen in The Flash. But it's finally here after months of hearing about this, and almost 2 months after, I think, first audiences saw it and started talking about it online. Cody, tell us about The Flash and what you thought of it.
Sure. So I'll keep the plot details simplistic, which are that Barry Allen in kind of present day, has some stuff going on with like his dad's, like his dad is like trying to get out on an appeal, and it kind of sparks this idea of like in a very emo thing, runs really fast and realizes that he can jump backwards in time.
So his dad is in jail for murdering his mother, but
right.
he didn't do it.
Right.
So he's trying to save his mother.
Yes. So he realizes that he can go back and fix things, and so he does this, and what happens is he sort of thinks that he's going back in time, but really what he does is he goes into a multiverse situation and finds a different version of himself, basically on the night that he first gets his powers. And so in order to and then doing this sort of creates a villain, or I guess maybe I don't really know the rules. Was that happening regardless, or was that a result of the
You're talking about the
Zod.
Zod.
Yeah.
He finds himself in a universe. He finds himself in a universe where Batman is Michael Keaton,
right?
And there was never a Superman.
Right, there we go. Yes, and so now then it becomes the existential threat, and then they enlist the help of Michael Keaton's Batman to help fix the threat, but also create try to undo this situation where he saves his mom, and then by way also saves his dad from jail. So that's basically the sort of plot of it all. And yeah, I think you and I are going to have some different opinions on this because I had a pretty bad time with the movie here. I think for starters, the first hour of the movie for me really is quite boring for me. It kind of starts with like an action sequence that happens. And then after that, and then after you sort of get a little bit of like Ben Affleck Batman action, it really is just like the next hour or 45 minutes or whatever, up until basically they meet Michael Keaton, is a lot of exposition. It's a lot of what you would get out of like an origin story, because basically you have this alternate Barry who is exploring his powers and getting taught this stuff. So it feels origin movie-ish as it kind of develops and establishes. And for me, maybe the worst chunk of the movie. And I think it's made worse by this problem that permeates most scenes, which is that I feel like a huge issue this has is that the movie is just very poorly paced, in that I think that most scenes feel like they go on for way too long. I mean, this is like a 2.5 hour movie as is, but it's just the pacing of it feels so off. There's a sequence early on in the movie where Barry is like saving some babies that are falling out of a building, which is kind of ridiculous in and of itself. But that scene feels like it takes forever. Like the scenes where he is like doing stuff as the Flash just feel like they go on for way too long and kind of stale in the middle of them for me. So I think that it's got this combination of being like boring, but also the scenes really feel like they're dragging for me. You also have this problem where where it was hard for me to continue to care about the things that were happening, because what starts off as like this really, relatively condensed storyline about Barry trying to save his mom and to protect his dad, which is like a small scale, small stakes kind of thing, of course has to open up into this existential threat with Zod. And then the movie stops being about Barry's parents, and then now it's just this sort of like perfunctory sort of battle against a world threatening evil. And the problem with it is that Yeah, it's like they had Michael Shannon for like a couple of hours, and you get like nothing with Zod. You get nothing that builds him into a threat. You spend no time establishing that at all. So you take this detour in the middle of what is supposed to be this like small scale story of Barry Allen trying to undo the past and save his parents, and then now you have to fuck around with this threatening to end the world thing again in one of these movies. And it's also the only way in which you're getting to the Supergirl stuff, which I think feels fine. Wasn't really into much of that, and then it also sort of gives you the way for the introduction of Michael Keaton, who I don't think Keaton, and this doesn't have anything to do with his performance. I don't think Keaton adds much to the mix here. I'm not really sure that the nostalgia play, aside from like hitting a couple of famous lines or whatever, and rehashing that, I don't really know that you get much of his Bruce Wayne in this role. I don't think it's really written for that. And also, he's given a lot of exposition as well, and he's handed that role as well. And then also, there is a part where he does give like a speech about like, when again Barry is talking to him about like, changing the past and stuff like that, and talking about how that made him who he was or whatever, which would be fine if that same speech didn't come from Ben Affleck an hour ago. and I understand like the point of this, which is, both universes of Bruce Wayne are kind of giving the same sort of thing, but it sort of blunts the impact of like a gravitas speech from Keaton when like literally we just saw a different version of it an hour ago. So the Keaton stuff doesn't really ever work with me. We also have what can't be ignored, which is some of the worst special effects in a big budget movie you will see, where it's like, and if you listen to Andy Muschietti, the director, it was by design, which whatever, but it has this like, especially in a certain part where they sort of explore the multiverse a little bit, it has this very uncanny valley, like it looks like a video game almost version of things, which is weird considering that I think certain things are allegedly like real cameos that look fake.
Is there some real ones in there?
So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I think the one that like everyone is talking about or knows about at this point was like that was a real thing.
Really? Because it doesn't look real.
I know, yeah, but I
guess he's the only living person that makes one of those cameos.
Yeah,
now that we talk about it,
and I don't. I mean, maybe I read it wrong or correctly, but it says, but there's a quote from the director that says, "Blank was absolutely wonderful. Although the role was a cameo, they dove into it. I dreamt all my life to work with them. I hope I can work with them again soon."
Right.
So it sounds like it was a real thing, which.
Interesting. It's got a sheen to it that look, and from what he described it as, and not to hijack this here, they describe it as like a zoetrope, which it is the effect that they're going for. I don't know that, like, reading at face value that it was intended to look off-putting. Like, it doesn't look right. Whether or not it was meant to look like that, it doesn't look right, and it looks bad. And
I think it doesn't excuse the other stuff in the movie that looks bad, like a lot of Flash running stuff. I think the Supergirl stuff looks kind of shitty. I
mean, that I can deal with better than the other one, because the other one's like the big set piece.
Right.
Like, because all these shots, like, one shot looks better than the other because when you look at the credits, there's 10,000 effects houses that work on different shots. Right. This big showpiece one is the bad-looking one.
Yeah.
The worst-looking one, I should say.
Yeah, and so I mean, I think all of that stuff sort of adds up to creating an experience that is super disappointing. I saw this movie with my old buddy and former guest on the show, Jerry Rocha, who was in town for some family stuff, and at one point I leaned over and I was like, I'm just dying for anything to happen, and this was kind of like pre-Michael Keaton. I was just, sort of like, I wish something would happen. And because a lot of the stuff is like played for laughs. I don't personally think the comedy hits for me. And I think a lot of that is because I think that I was not a huge fan of Ezra Miller's portrayal of the sort of like alternate universe Barry. I just found it annoying. And again, I think a lot of this stuff is by design, but I just think that they kind of played it a little bit, annoying and loud and obnoxious. There's just weird stuff too. Like at one point, I don't know if you caught this or if this bothered you at all, but this is another point where I leaned over to Jerry and said something where they're waiting to see if Michael Keaton is going to work with them. And then he finally comes out of like in costume and he says the I'm Batman thing. And then one of the new Barry or whatever faints. And I'm like, you knew he was Batman. What are you fucking fainting about? like he was just there looking at the Batmobile, saying that he saw it when he was a kid, and he also knows that's where they're going, and they knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman. Like, why is he fainting at finding that out? It's just weird. It's just,
I get it. I mean, at that point, you were way off board, so I get it.
Sure, yes, but also at the same time, it just doesn't like make any sense,
right? Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I mean, ultimately, what this sort of adds up to is like, it kind of, it feels small until it isn't. It feels like it's going to be, a sort of like, we've seen Marvel explore the multiverse in ways that has given you, the sort of like, in Doctor Strange, you got some like dream casting stuff happen. And then, you had, the nostalgia factor play in the most recent Spider-Man movie. And this sort of sort of minorly plays with it with pretty disappointing results. And I think that's the thing, that it has like potential, but I don't think it ever follows through on it in any significant way. So for me, this was a huge swing and a miss.
Yeah, I didn't. I'm going to differ with you. I didn't find it boring. I was interested the entire way through. I do feel it does take a little too long to get going. That said, I didn't dislike the action sequence at the beginning, and I like the tone it's set for sort of ridiculousness, because I think that's probably what this movie needed, was to be a little more lighthearted. We're right on the 10th anniversary of Man of Steel also. So we're at the tail end of this Snyderverse experiment that has, I guess, arguably been, would you say arguably not successful? I would say overall not successful, right?
Yeah, I don't think that's arguable. I think it has been unsuccessful for the most part.
So, here we are with the probably the biggest showpiece in this whole thing since the Justice League, and that was a disaster. At least the original cut. I find the Snyder cut to be more tolerable. This one is like a sort of backwards Justice League a little bit. Like you get everybody but Superman and Cyborg, which, by the way, I guess they wanted to include Cyborg. No shots of Ray Fisher. Shit, what's that? I'm sorry,
Fisher.
Ray Fisher at all. Sorry, I forgot his last name. But they keep mentioning him as though anybody gave a shit about that character. God bless him. I guess they were trying to mend some fences with him. I don't know what the circumstances were. But you get like this kind of Justice League adventure to start the movie. And then you dive into the Barry going through time stuff, which in my head, I was imagining this film to be sort of a different take on No Way Home. It doesn't make, No Way Home is a bona fide crowd pleaser. It doesn't make any fucking sense. And it sort of, if you think about the story, like your question, I think your biggest thing about No Way Home is, why is he all of a sudden nice to these villains? I think was the question. Is because like this is the version of Spider-Man we got, and that's why. It doesn't have to make sense. You got Andrew Garfield and you got Tobey Maguire back. That's what everybody was wanting to see. That's what everybody came to see. That's what everybody got.
Right.
This one, I feel like, was shooting for that, and I think misses the mark because no one gives a shit about this Snyderverse stuff. Like, the big draw is, for me, and clearly I'm old, is the Keaton Batman. I don't know that anybody else gives a shit. Anybody that's younger than, say, like 38 years old, I can't imagine you giving a shit about the Keaton Batman because you didn't grow up with that one. You know, maybe if it was Christian Bale, maybe there'd be a different story. Maybe this wouldn't be relatively tanking at the box office. But as it stands right now, you're reminiscing mostly about an experiment that nobody gave a shit about. Like, that's my biggest problem with the movie, is that once we get to the Zod stuff, I didn't fucking like it the first time. I don't give a shit about it the second time. I like Michael Shannon as an actor. I hated what Man of Steel did with that. It was ultra violent and dull and just mean-spirited and boring. And then this movie plunks that down in the middle of it and uses Michael Keaton as the Batman in that universe against this, existential threat, which I like the Keaton stuff a lot. I like what they do with him. I'm not of the camp that's like, I can't stand seeing all this CGI with Michael Keaton, as though the original Batman didn't use state-of-the-art special effects. Shut the fuck up about that stuff. That kind of shit annoys the shit out of me. It really like that set piece really bogs it down. And then the kind of whiffing of the multiverse aspect of it is the biggest sin to me. Because as we talked about, the multiverse things that you see, and we won't spoil them, but you get a lot of cameos. And let's just say you get different versions of these heroes. Some that were real, some that aren't, that never happened. Which is an interesting take to think of. But imagine had, instead of it being in this like weird wax museum way, had these characters like interacted with the scenes happening. Like, it would have been so much more fun. And that thing, it just amounts to like a crappy special effect showing these characters that either, people that are long, long dead, or people that never played these characters but might have one day. And then just like archival clips from something that happened, that something that aired almost 100 years ago. Like, it's a weird choice for this movie to make. It's a weird choice for the characters to stop and watch this happen as opposed to interact with them when they could have, which is what they should have done. So I think those are the two biggest sins that the movie makes. Otherwise, I had an okay time with it. I can't help but not really give a shit because of everything that's been said about this sort of phase of this storytelling winding down. I don't know that this is as necessarily an open-ended reset as I've been led to believe.
Not at all, I don't think.
Yeah, I guess it's easy to do. Like, it would be easy to retcon it. But this doesn't leave anything in a place moving forward where I feel like okay, here's what's coming next. What was the last one? Shazam had like these, I guess, orphaned clips of what might happen next. I don't know what happens after this one. I like Ezra Miller's performance. I think they're good. I didn't mind their take on what happened with, however the younger Barry was supposed to be. I think it's a pretty big, for a movie that has such terrible special effects at certain parts, it has a really great long running special effect in doubling up Ezra Miller. Like, that looks amazing. Mm-hmm. But is it a disappointment? I think so. Yeah. But is it on par with kind of the rest of these DC movies? I think yeah. I think it's near. This is admittedly a very, very low bar. It's near the top. I don't know how many movies are better than it. Like Wonder Woman, I guess, the first Wonder Woman.
Well,
Aquaman, maybe.
This is the thing. It's that like. Oh, and I forgot to mention one other thing that I feel like doesn't work is like the Kiersey Clemens stuff feels abandoned.
Oh yeah, she was had a bigger role, I think. Wasn't she in the Snyder Cut?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I believe so. Yeah, but anyway, I kind of yelled at our friend Brian at something, which is in the review, it's sort of it's like best DCEU movie ever, and I'm like, that's the same kind of faint praise that happened last week with like, it's the third best Transformers movie. Like, right, sure, all right, if you want to go waving that flag on what is like the lowest of the low bars, knock yourself out. But that is faint praise. There is
a certain element of this movie that I do enjoy. I do enjoy kind of you said you were bored by the first hour. Yeah. I feel like it's sort of it almost takes place in real time.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of I liked that aspect of it. I felt like everything kind of naturally flowed one to the other.
Yeah.
I feel like it's when you get to the Zod stuff where the movie kind of throws its hands up and gives up.
Well, but that's the question I want to ask you about that, though, because like we have conversations regularly when these things come out about stakes, and we talked about it with Guardians, where like they gave us an honest to God, like intimate, low stakes. Well, I mean, low stakes in the terms of like the world or the planets or galaxy, whatever, but smaller stakes in terms of like it's them trying to save their friend, right?
Right.
And it's simple. And so this movie presents that, but then like just kind of lets go of it until the very last bit. Like, but how did you feel about that? Because I feel like that's something that normally would bug you.
Oh no, that's what I'm saying. Is when we get to the Zod stuff is when the movie just sort of throws its hands up.
But were you into like the small scale story up until?
Yeah. And so I wanted, and selfishly, I guess, and I wanted another No Way Home. I wanted this like, well, I mean, I guess No Way Home's stakes were a little higher, but I wanted this like he fucked it up, and how's he gonna fix it? But then when you throw Zod into the mix, and I knew it was coming because it's in the trailers. When you throw that into the mix, like that becomes the existential element. Like, man, I don't care. I didn't care in Man of Steel. I don't care in this. Like, I wanted to see. I came for this to see. Let's show me if you want to play around with this cameo stuff. If you want to do the same fucking thing, I am on board. You want to throw Michael Keaton's Batman in there for the only reason other than nostalgia and the idea that it's a multiverse, I'm fucking on board. But keep Zod out of it. Keep this shit out of it that didn't work. I don't care.
Well, I think what it does, and this is the problem that I had with Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness, is like when it starts to bring up these like, either cameos or like alternate universes of whatever, the film kind of renders all of it a little useless by the time you get to the conclusion of it, because again, it's versions of like for like the Supergirl stuff, that's a character that like we don't know up until that moment, and then her storyline is just sort of like done away with quickly.
They really do just abandon it. They really just like, wait, we're screwed. Sorry, we can't help. Yeah,
and so it's just sort of like this. It makes no impact. I mean, aside from like seeing the like her like beat some people up a little bit, like that's about it. And so it's the same kind of problem there, where like I feel like this multiverse thing brings up this problem of like how are you supposed to develop this emotional connection to these multiverse characters who like number one are not related necessarily to the ones that you do have a connection to, and number two, within the plot of one single movie can be there and gone,
well,
having not made a lasting impact.
Well, I'm not going to get on board with that, because I don't think that's. I think that can happen in any kind of film. You can have somebody that's there and gone. My problem is essentially holding this kind of myth making that the Snyderverse started as sort of the bellwether of what they're going to go back to. I don't think this is the wrong time to do it. Like we're at the 10-year mark of this failed experiment. Everybody's moving on. This was not the decision to make. I know this was made before like the hard like kind of stop that James Gunn and Peter Seraphim put on this thing to move forward, but like, give me something else other than Zod. Like, I don't give a shit. I don't care. Like, if you wanted to, like, hey, we got to go help. Like, we screwed it up, and now Superman's not going to be here. Like, because of this happened. Whatever. Give me something new. Don't rehash this stuff that no one liked the first time.
Right.
Or, I mean, somebody liked it, but not enough people liked for this thing to continue. That's the kind of thing that would give me some a little more enjoyment in this. Like, hey, you fucked it up. Now you got to go fix it. Not that you fucked it up. Like nothing that he does in the film causes Zod's arrival. Mm-hmm. Like, and that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for you fucked this timeline up and you got to go fix it. Yeah. I mean, the idea that Supergirl is kind of left alone after a while, it's annoying. It's annoying the way that the movie does kind of just, again, literally almost throws its hands up and gives up on what it's talking about. Anyway, we've talked enough about this, I think. What's your grade for The Flash, Cody?
Yeah, so for me, this is a legitimately bad movie, and I think disappointing in a way of like it had a lot of potential to be good, and then kind of for me has it all squandered. So I really dislike this, maybe to a shocking degree. I'm giving it a C-.
I'm one of the things I'm surprised by is that that Jerry didn't like it, because Jerry's a bit of a mark. I'm going to say it.
Oh, sure. He'll be the first to admit that too. But it was like and Jerry was going into it excited too. I mean, like, and I was not going in ready to hate it either. But like, as soon as it started, like neither of us, I could just tell that both of us were not into it. Jerry said something to me like right before Keaton was going to show up. He said something to me like Michael Keaton's about to take the mound down 10-0 or something like that, which is the benefit of having a comedian sitting next to you at a movie.
And that is so my grade's a B-. I know I talked a lot about what I didn't like. The warm hug of Michael Keaton back playing Batman, and the kind of the stuff that I did like was enough to make it watchable for me. I'm not going to say, like I said, this is a disappointment as for what potential I think it had. I was looking for the massive fan service cameo stuff. I didn't quite get it.
Especially now that we know what they were protecting. Like, come on.
Well, yeah, like the thing that they were cutting off at the very end.
Yes.
I didn't hate that. I liked that. That was a nice little treat for someone like me who is old again. But I don't know that anybody, you throw like the average moviegoer in there, are they going to know what that means other than that this is
I don't think so.
I don't either.
I know that stuff, and it took me a second to make the connection.
First of all, I kind of figured that was going to happen.
Right.
I'd heard rumors about something happening like that, and that was my guess. And it was process of elimination that brought me to that guess. We won't spoil it, but there is if you think about it for even kind of 30 seconds and know what's happening in the real world, you can be like, this is what's going to happen. I didn't mind that. I think the cameos that we talk about that are in that like multiverse thing, that's the disappointing shit to me.
For sure.
That's the shit that could have been so much cooler and ends up just being really dull and doesn't look good.
Yeah, and we were talking about this earlier, but like even its like biggest one is something that like, again, the general movie audience is going to have no idea about that.
Right, but I loved that. That was a nice little, like, that's the kind of shit I wanted to see. Right. I was like, and like even like certain elements of that unproduced thing popping up in there. Because that's, to me, that's similar to when Patrick Stewart shows up in Multiverse of Madness and it plays like a snippet of the X-Men cartoon theme. Mm-hmm. Like that's a deep cut for the people that are in the, the old people in the theater. And I'm fine with that. But the way they pulled it off, I didn't like. It was so much potential squandered. Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, Elemental.
Whoa. How'd you do that?
It's the minerals. Check this out.
Awesome! Watch this!
This is the latest from Disney-Pixar. The second film after Lightyear to be released in theaters after they're throwing everything onto Disney Plus before. Which maybe they made a mistake here. I don't know. Again, first and foremost, I don't know why this opened the same weekend as The Flash. Mm-hmm. Neither of them are doing well at the box office. This thing is not doing well at all.
No, it's the worst performing opening weekend of a Pixar movie ever.
That's crazy. It's a very complicated concept to unravel. This is basically people represented by elements of like fire, water, wind, and earth. Man, I don't know. Tell us about Elemental, Cody, and what you thought of it.
Yeah, so it is sort of again as you explained it, there are different elements that are represented by people, and essentially they all live in a place called Element City, I think it is, and it becomes like clear that this is sort of like a immigration sort of parallel here, where the people that are water are seen as like that's what the city is for, and then on the outskirts of the city where live the fire people, and the fire people like generally are not allowed in certain places in the water area, and so it's got like some notes of like this sort of like segregation in it too, and then also you get bits of like what it really is sort of like a story about like an interracial relationship. Essentially.
Yeah.
So, and that's essentially the sort of like core of what this is, why it's Elements, and why they chose this. I don't know, because it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, when you look under the hood.
Well, yeah, because I mean, there are valid reasons for real fire and real water to be separate, right?
Sure.
Like, how does that when you play that into like an immigration segregation story, then it becomes a little muddied.
Yeah, and
the
you
waters
also
get muddied.
Yeah. Well, and also too, like there's just some weird kind of stuff to like the rules of it all too, where like the fire people can hold paper and books for some reason. Anyway, and so I don't have a whole lot to say about this movie, because I think it just sort of like, once it becomes clear what it is, which is, again, a story about immigration, a story about interracial relationships, it sort of follows the sort of like Pixar, formula where, you have, you run into your problems, and then you explain the problems, and then you use, metaphors to go through the problems, and then the problems resolve. And then that's basically, like sort of, all there is to it. There's a lot of stuff where like, there's a lot of low hanging fruit jokes, that occur throughout it. So it doesn't have the typical, like, in my opinion, like the smart adult oriented humor that a lot of these other movies might have. I do think some of the fruit is low hanging. And I think that even for a Pixar movie, this movie like really leads into the schmaltz and the sort of saccharine nature of it, where it is a love story. I mean, at its core, and I guess technically speaking, within Pixar, there's elements of like romantic stories, but this is the first one I can remember in a while that is like straight up just a love story.
I guess WALL-E was sort of a love story, but it's a little. I mean, it's obviously way different. It's not just a straight ahead story,
right? Which I think this one is.
100%.
Where it's a straight ahead love story, and then and like the thing that makes it different is that it's also a commentary on, again, interracial relationships and immigration and stuff like that. So, I think some of the emotional beats hit decently well, just because it follows the formula, and these Pixar movies are sort of like laboratory made to try to get people to cry, I think sometimes. And I think that if you fall into the category that you kind of easily cry at Pixar, I think this won't be, and I think you'll probably do that in this one too. And I think that, again, there are some like authentically moving parts to it, but for me it just kind of is there. I don't think that it's terrible or bad or unwatchable, but once you start to realize what it's doing, it just sort of feels a little by the numbers, and nothing really sets it apart for me. And I don't think that the creative, their source of creativity in terms of making it Elements like really pays off in any kind of significant way. I kind of feel like maybe there was a different metaphor that could have been used that would have hit a little harder or made a little bit more sense. So.
So I guess my biggest question is, why not just make this a movie with humans?
Right. I don't know.
It doesn't. I mean, I guess maybe to appeal to kids, but this movie really does sort of fumble the metaphor, I think, by turning this into like an immigration story. Again, like I mentioned, if you pick it apart too much, there are reasons that these elements are separated. It's not just a blanket discrimination story. Like, it doesn't, like, you can't fire and water can't interact without one of them being harmed, right? Like that's kind of the whole point. I don't know. Doesn't the movie make that point itself? Like they can't touch
right
without this chemical reaction happening. I don't know.
But
to me, that's
which is the notion of the movie, but
right.
The physics are off in a lot of stuff of this movie.
And then like there's water that isn't sentient. I don't quite understand what's happening here.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that bug me is there seems to be like an abandoned plot element, like there's some sort of mystery as to why a certain thing is happening. Did you get that at all? Like let's just talk about it. The pipes that bust at the fire shop, because there's supposed to be no water in Fire Town or whatever the fuck.
Right.
And there's all of a sudden there's this leak that happens that threatens to destroy the shop. It sets the plot in motion. But then like that element just kind of gets forgotten about. I don't know. Did it ever get resolved or did I miss this?
I mean, are you talking about how she like puts the glass on the dam and that stops the leak?
Yeah.
Isn't that the resolution?
Is that it? There was no like, it was just, there was a broken dam.
Yeah.
And she fixed it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well then what the fuck? What the fuck is this? What was the point of following that lead? Like, why did that have to be a good, like 10-minute chunk of the movie? I don't understand. Like to me,
because eventually it broke again and then that caused the flood everywhere, but.
Right. But like, why couldn't it, like there was like a mystery element at first. Like it was set up as though something was happening because he was investigating.
I think that was just a reason for those, like, to get those two characters to spend time with each other.
Okay, so it was fucking clumsy as shit, is I guess what I'm getting at. I think that's kind of the epitome, like not the epitome, but the what am I trying to say? The main gripe about this movie is that it's just clumsy as hell. Like it's such a lofty concept that, okay, here's the story. There's people that are made of fire. There's people that are made of water. There's people that are made of earth. There's people that are supposed to be made of air, but they're clouds, which is technically just water. And they live together, but they, like, the water people are higher status than fire people, apparently, because they're immigrants, and then two of them fall in love. Like, okay, fine. Why didn't you just make this with real people? Or not with real people, but, like, animated characters that represent real people. Mm-hmm. That'd be a way more powerful story to tell. I guess it wouldn't kind of fit into, like, then why would it be a kids movie at that point? But at this point, I don't know any kid that would be fascinated by this. Like, this doesn't seem to be made for a child.
Yeah.
Other than like the prettiness of the colors, like I don't get who the fuck this movie's for. I guess is in the bottom line is, who is this movie for? I don't know. I just found this. I don't find it's not the worst Pixar movie I've seen, but it is one of the more confounding ones.
Yeah. And again, I just, it feels just sort of there, it doesn't feel like it's really accomplishing much. And again, I think to your point, like the idea that this is like a pure love story, I don't know how like kids are supposed to connect to like a love story of being with someone you're told that you can't be with. Like that doesn't feel like even on that baseline level, that's not going to appeal to children, I don't think. But
they're being told they can't be with them. Like the reason they can't be with them is because they're like,
they don't belong together or whatever.
Well, right. But like in the world of this movie is like, they're fundamentally unable to be together. Like fire and water can't mix, except because this movie tells you it can, it does. Right.
So it becomes like, again, a matter of physics versus like some kind of like prejudice.
Right.
There's no prejudice to it aside from like just sort of like a hierarchy of people, which again, the movie in the movie, like people with fire are kept out because they would destroy everything. So it's again not really prejudice as much as it is like a mixing of, I don't know. It's just a clumsy metaphor.
Yeah, the metaphor is really labored, and it really doesn't work. But what's your grade for Elemental, Cody?
Yeah, I mean, I think it follows the blueprint enough to be watchable, so I give it a C+. It's, again, not the worst Pixar movie I've seen, but it is lower tier.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a C. I was just bored by it. And then by the end of it, when it kind of devolved into just a love story, like, I don't mind that, but, like, it I don't know why all this setup for what could have been told with just as a normal love story. All right, let's move on to our last movie, Past Lives.
There's a word in Korean, 인연. It means providence or fate.
Do you believe in that?
That's just something Koreans say to seduce someone.
What a good story this is. Childhood sweethearts who reconnect 20 years later and realize they were meant for each other. In the story, I would be the evil white American husband standing in the way of destiny.
Shut up. He was just this kid in my head for such a long time. I think I just missed him.
Did he miss you?
혜성! 와, 너다.
와,
와.
진짜 와다. 와.
와.
I didn't see this, but you did, Cody. Tell us about Past Lives and what you thought of it.
Sure. So this is the latest film from A24, and it is sort of like a long spanning love story. So essentially we meet these characters when they're 12. And then one of them, ends up moving to America, and they're close friends, but also they have crushes on each other and they're very close. And then one of them moves to America and then reconnect again when they are 24, and then drift apart again. And then when they are 36, the woman in the movie is now married to an American man. The guy is still in Korea and decides to try to reconnect with her and go to New York to meet with her. And so it sort of, hits them every 12 years, which is that, 12, 24, and 36. And so it's this really like subtle and sweet and heartbreaking and an incredible film that is a debut film from a director named Celine Song, who made it autobiographical. And I was actually watching an interview with her,
smelling,
because I wanted to hear more about it, and apparently this was like Celine Song's this movie that she made was her first time ever on a film set. Was her making this movie, because previously she had only been in a writer's room on a TV show, and that's about it. And for someone who has, not having any experience with it being her first film, it's so, she's so in control of it. I mean, I think there's a couple of really great filmmaking touches in, just kind of camera shots, but also, knowing that, when the camera or a take needs to linger, getting performances that are so subtle that evoke so much emotion out of her actors. The way that the movie opens, it has this great device where it's the three of them in a bar. So it's the white American husband, the Korean girl that he married, and then the Korean guy. And it's a shot from them at a bar, and you can't hear them. You can hear this other couple talking about him, trying to figure out what's going on there, how they know each other. And then it kind of jumps into the story. And I just love it as a first scene. And it treats its audience like it can follow what's going on without things being overt. There's very small and subtle lines of dialogue that just pack a punch, but not it's not these characters outwardly expressing how they're feeling as much as it is sort of the implied feelings that they're getting, the subtle things. So for me, it's just such a amazing work of subtlety and emotion that you really don't come across all that often. I mean, even talking about it's a love story about where the two main characters almost never truly interact, and it has a great it has this great it takes place in the 2000s, I assume, and they've got and they connect over Skype, and it's very true to an old version of Skype and stuff like that, and it feels really authentic there. And then and then also it's subtly very funny. The script, it's one of the better scripts that I've seen in a long time. So yeah, I have nothing but great things to say about this one.
Yeah, I really wanted to see it. I just ran out of time this week.
Yeah.
Didn't get a press screening, but hopefully I'll catch it soon, or maybe when it hits on demand.
Yeah, I would definitely make time for it. It's the best movie I've seen so far this year.
But it's a tall thing to say when we talk about the Flash. And, Elements
and Transformers.
And Transformers. And anyway, Cody, what's your grade for Past Lives?
So Past Lives gets an A-. Best movie of the year so far, and also I would be hard-pressed to find a way that this thing doesn't make my top 10 or even top 5 of the year this year. It's going to be a very hard movie to beat.
Wow. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week. Next week, I don't really know what's happening other than No Hard Feelings, Cody. I don't know if you have a press screening for that.
Yeah, we'll have a press screening on Tuesday. And then also opening wide-ish is Asteroid City, the new Wes Anderson movie.
Yeah, you did see that already, I think.
I have seen it, yeah.
I haven't seen that. The press screening was the same night as Indiana Jones for me, so...
Yeah.
That's what I'm eager to talk about. I know you have to catch up with that one, but... these big movies, big summer movies, and then next week's a little more quiet.
Yeah.
Wonder why it's a little quiet in the middle of this storm. Anyway, if you want to reach us, you can email us at podcast@cinesnob.net. Find us on Twitter @cinesnob, Facebook cinesnobnet, youtube.com/cinesnob. Anything else before we go, Cody?
No, let's enjoy the draft, and then by this time next week, Victor Wembanyama will be a San Antonio Spurs.
I have a hard time saying that too, and it's so easy to say.
Yeah,
I still trip over it all the time.
I think it's the Benyanyam, the sort of that combination of syllables.
Benyanyama.
Wembanyama.
Yeah,
it's hard to get
just
down.
say Wemby.
No, we'll get it down. Within a few weeks.
God, what if he's a bust? Oh man, would that be so terrible?
It would be terrible. I was talking to my friend the other day, and he said that he had a dream that the Spurs drafted Scoot Henderson instead.
Wouldn't that be some fucked up shit?
Yeah,
that'd be crazy. I guess it's well, who was it LeBron, Darko Milicic, and then Carmelo Anthony?
I think so, yeah.
And then, because Detroit, we got plenty of whatever Carmelo's position was. I can't remember what shooting guard. I think
it was a small forward.
Small forward. I forget. Anyway, all right. On that note, I'm Jerrod Kingery.
I'm Cody Vifania.
Thank you for listening to the CineSnob Podcast. To read reviews, interviews, and more, visit cinesnob.net. See you next week.